All right, good morning. We are ready to get going here. It is Wednesday morning. It's November 12th, 7:30 in the morning, Eastern time, as we like to get going here. And today's going to be a little bit of an interesting podcast. John's a little bit fired up. Keith and I are going to be maybe the sober voice of reason here. Maybe, maybe not. But really what we're going to get to is we're going to be talking about, who really does the U.S. tax code punish the most? Okay. And that's kind of a fair question to a degree. I have an idea that's probably a little bit different than a few other people. I think the answer is yes to all the above is the correct answer. But really, the
Mm.
controversy going on right now, Keith, and with me today is Keith Redmondand and John Richardson. I'm gonna go over to Keith first because this is all happening on his group, and it was really in response to the post that we have. So let me get this up here.
You want to introduce us first,
Yes,
Anthony?
I'm going to introduce
Yeah.
you. I'm going to introduce you. Absolutely, Keith. So with me is Keith Redmond. He runs a Facebook group here. Let me get this up here. Where is it? Not that. That's our little slides from today. This is what I want to get up, and then I'm going to introduce you, Keith. Here, let me move that. Let me add this. Come on, come on. Let's work. There we go. There's something. That's what I'm looking for. But we want to be here. Okay, here we go. So we posted this talking about this today. We're
Yeah.
talking about this right now on Keith's group, Keith Redmond, the Global Navigator for Americans Overseas, and you can find his Facebook group, and that's what we're talking about today. Is this right here? We posted
Yeah.
this. Three handsome gentlemen right here, Keith. Right?
Uh,
Um,
yeah. American
people,
Expatriates for Residency-Based Taxation is the name of the group.
and it's right. Yeah, and it's right. And I'll put it in the super chat for anyone not familiar. I know we have a lot of people from that group here today, but I'll put that in here. Good morning, everyone, to you. So we have Keith here. And by the way, if you are looking to reach out to Keith, I just want to mention this because he often has to step up early. Today is one such day. Here's a link to the group we're actually discussing. And Keith, often tell people what you do.
Well,
What you,
for almost, I guess about 15 years, I work with Americans overseas, American immigrants with an E, and accidental Americans and their respective families who are having various difficulties vis-a-vis the U.S. extraterritorial tax system and its tentacle, FATCA. And what I do with people is have them go over, based on their profile and experience, the real options available to them and so that they can formulate a short-term and long-term strategy based on their particular situation. Yes. So and they can contact me through the Facebook group or US_overseas_advocate at
very,
outlook.com.
all right,
Voila.
beautiful, Keith. Beautiful. There we go. Beautiful, beautiful, awesome, Keith. So, here's really what kind of started us off. This description right here. Look, I'm a tax attorney, and I'll be honest about my perspective on this. Is that I actually have no special. I have nothing in the fight here because the way I look at it is I'm not looking at it as Americans versus accidental Americans, expats versus this. I look at this as like, look, guys, we're all abused by this tax code. As you go through the law, as you go through it, it becomes very abundantly clear the government is claiming more power than ever was granted to it. It becomes very clear, and we're all very abused in the tax system. So this is sort of what
Yeah.
it sparked a debate because and we have the great John Richardson with us today. We're going to probably, Keith, you and I are probably going to start, we're going to probably get John going a little bit here because there's a
Yeah.
comment here that kind of, and this is, look, Fabian, it's really Fabian Lahar, who represents a lot of accidental Americans. I have nothing against him. I wish him always the best of luck.
No, he started an association of accidental Americans a number of years ago, and he's done a lot of good work. I want to say
Yes,
that. He's done a lot of good
absolutely.
work.
Yep.
Have a great deal of respect for him, but there's an issue right now when it comes to, the genesis of the problem is citizenship-based taxation.
Yeah.
And then now it's tentacle, as I like to put it, is FATCA, the Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act. But the
Yep.
genesis of the problem, as I call it, is CBT. And the way I look at it is I take a look at it as an umbrella. CBT is the umbrella. And underneath that are all the different populations, or you could call them subpopulations, that are adversely affected by CBT and also by FATCA with banking issues. So we have Americans who live overseas. We have, whether that be long term, well, more long term than short term, but long term. We have American immigrants with an E who live permanently overseas. We have accidental Americans who live overseas. And underneath that, we have people who are self employed, who are business owners, who
Yeah.
are single mothers, it runs the gamut. And the thing is that with each of those populations, there are major challenges and major damage that is done across the board. And we can always give examples of those different populations of some serious, damaging, financially ruinous issues that are a problem. And everyone is in the same boat collectively. No population has it worse than another. Every population is dealing with its own nuance of damages collectively. So we should not be saying that one population has it much worse than another population, because that's very divisive. We have
And
to make sure
that's how
that we
we're coming. Yeah.
come together and say, guys, we're being, and pardon my French, no pun intended, but we're all being screwed by U.S. extraterritorial taxation and its tentacle FATCA. Okay?
That's
Bottom line, bottom line. So the posting that I put up yesterday was just to announce that we're having the podcast today. And, we had pushback on it that we're being divisive
yeah.
because we're saying, which I don't understand, because we're saying that everybody's in the same boat. So that's not being divisive.
And
That's saying we're all in the same
it's
boat.
just very true. I mean, and if you're a life form on the earth, you're kind of impacted by this. Everybody is, and that's kind of where I would say is if you're a life form on this earth,
Right.
somehow
Absolutely.
the U.S.
And
tax regime is going to, in compliance regime, is probably going to
right.
impact your life in some
Right.
sort of way.
And, and this is a perspective that I have globally working with these populations over these past number of years. Now,
Yeah.
within those subpopulations, there are some advantages that some have that other subpopulations don't have. That's
And
there as
this is what
well.
and what I like to point out with these advantages is just to show how absurd it is. Why are some people given advantages over other people just to show? And my point is just like this is totally absurd. That in the Fifth Amendment we allegedly have some right to equal protection and due process, but the process you receive is all based on these definitions made up by statutes to interfere with our.
And as John says, it's all based on your circumstances of birth.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, right. And some do change, but you're right. Some do. Now, this is what I want to say about Fabian. I appreciate all the things that he's done. He's brought
Absolutely.
this issue. He's got it on French national television.
Well,
I mean, he was on
he even brought it on U.S. television.
Fantastic work.
Yeah. I mean, he even brought it on U.S. television. So that's the thing. He's done a lot of good work. So
yes,
bravo to him. And I do really like the guy. But in this particular instance, I have a problem.
Well, you know what? Let's
but it's not just about him. It's not just about him.
Yep. So here it is. We're gonna approach it and say, hey, Fabian, you're our friend. And we just want to explain to you a little bit more about how things actually work and that everyone is screwed over by the American tax system, and everyone should unite to say it's wrong. That's really what we want to do. So John is here today, and this is kind of I'm going to try to here's Fabian's argument here. Get it? Most accidental Americans who have never lived in the United States and do not speak English do not have a social security number. For this reason, because their place of birth is in the United States, they are notified of the closure of accounts due to extraterritorial legislative in a country that's their home. He's telling the truth there, right, Keith? That's absolutely true. Absolutely true. Now that is true, and that's sort of the hard part of being accidental Americans.
It's that banking issue that's such a challenge. Yeah.
Right. And it's absolutely unfair what it does. And, now this is what I would say, we're talking about the root cause of being citizenship-based taxation. I think the root cause is more the United States of America just doing what it does.
Well, yeah. But for our purposes, it's
for our purposes.
Yeah. It's the extraterritorial.
The thing that hurt accidental Americans the most was not, I'm going to say this, was not citizenship-based taxation. Rather, it was its enforcement mechanism, FATCA.
Right,
That is what. That's
exactly.
what. So what happened was accidental Americans ended up with a FATCA problem that created a tax problem. But without FATCA, there's not that problem existent. People were, hey, look, accidental Americans, existed in various ways for years.
No, that population never was deemed
Still,
accidental Americans because
yeah,
CBT really was hard to enforce or
right.
try to get it enforced prior to the Foreign Account Tax
That's
Compliance
right.
Act. But that just
Yes.
created this whole problem with banking issues. Now, mind you, accidental Americans do have a problem with banking issues, but let me tell you, the other populations have a problem with banking issues as well, because there are Americans overseas who didn't have a Social Security number or whatever the case may be, or they're getting shut out of their banks because they are American, because they were born in the US, because they have a US passport. They get shut out. Fidelity Investment in the UK is a perfect example. It doesn't matter whether you're an accidental American or an American overseas or whatever, you're getting shut out. So, again, across the board, collectively, every population that's adversely affected has its challenges and the damage being done. Every segment of the population.
All right, yeah. So here's really the comment here, right here. We'll get to this, and John, I'm gonna go over to you in a second because we just want to show, like, quickly. I think we could quickly show that it's an unfortunate situation. Accidental Americans, look, it's unfortunate, it's terrible, and it's just proof that this, the government's out of control. But that the solutions for accidental Americans actually do exist to a little bit more of a degree. So let me just get this is the comment that might here's the comment, if you can't read it. True, but accidental Americans have it far worse. Many lived in the U.S., don't even speak English or have a social security number, and are losing local bank accounts because they're citizens on paper and are punished for it. All right, John, I'm going to just go to this. I'm just going to go to this web page right here.
And don't forget the response from Richard May. That was
I'll get to that. But I just want to just sort of say right here, what am I looking at here, John?
You're going down to 877.
Good morning to the great John. By the way, John, do we have our 32-ounce McDonald Land coffee this morning? Hey, there it is. All right, we can get going.
We're going down. It's just keep going down. Okay, to the exceptions to covered expatriate status. I think it's 877 AG.
G. Okay, yeah.
So.
And this is what we're talking about. So there's essentially an exit tax, and this is the thing that.
Well, I can't okay. Yeah, go down a little further slowly. Yeah, no, leave it. Stop right there. See under exceptions.
There we go. Yeah.
Okay, so this is one. Okay, there's another one, 7701A50, plus the relief procedures for former citizens are clearly designed to accommodate dual citizens from birth that don't have a social security number, et cetera. Now, my point is simply this. I agree with what Keith said, so I don't have anything to add. I see this as an equal opportunity to destroy, and I'm going to be honest, I think it is very, very dangerous and damaging to start claiming, that one group, somehow should be treated in a especially different way, et cetera. Okay, for reasons that, I don't think they should in any case. But my point here, and this is just an objective description of this is simple fact. All right, provisions that exist in the Internal Revenue Code. Nobody can wish this away. Nobody can say this is some weird interpretation. This stuff is right there, plain and simple, which provides a tremendous benefit to precisely the group of people that are claiming to be the worst hurt by this. Okay, that's the first. In other words, okay, this dual citizenship exemption, the exit tax thing, not only is it a benefit to this group, but the lack of it for other people actually forces them into renunciation because they need to renounce before they hit the 2 million mark to preserve their ability to send assets to their U.S. kids. And then we go over to, the general provision, which is unbelievable. I don't even think we've ever talked about it on this podcast, but go over to 7701A50B. Look it up.
A50. Yeah, I have 77A50B.
Yeah, down to 50. Keep going.
50. Oh my God, it's 50. Jeez, they got a lot, huh?
Yeah.
You know, by the way, there's a lot of definitions here, aren't there? Here we go.
Now, I want you to notice, nobody ever talks about this, okay? But in addition, under the Internal Revenue Code, Treasury is given express authority, okay, to create regulations for people who were dual citizens at birth to basically get them out of the whole thing, okay? Now, I have a lot of trouble understanding, all right, you know, I mean, I see this as an equal opportunity destroyer. I have a lot of trouble understanding why somehow being a dual citizen at birth should give people, you know, this sort of a get out of jail free card. And I'll give you the answer. Okay, the answer is because it tells you exactly what you think the United States view of citizenship is, that it's an ownership interest in the individual. And therefore, following from that, and this is the only explanation, following from that, that if you're a dual citizen at birth, therefore some other country must own part of you or something like that. So we'll either, you know, split the proceeds or, you know, have some deal or something. But look, once again, and this is not this is not a claim, okay, that one group has it better or worse than another. I think all people have this bad in certain ways. You know, yesterday I was reading, for example, about a couple in New Zealand that just been hit with a few $1 million.
Yeah, we might need to cover that one. And yeah,
unbelievable. You know, these dual citizens who are not in the tax system is a great benefit. I mean, they don't, because of that, you know, they don't have that particular problem, okay, circumstantially. But again, the law, okay, has all kinds of prescribed benefits for precisely the same group of people, okay? And by the way, do I think this group of people is treated unfairly? You bet I do. But why? Because I think that everybody subject to citizenship taxation is treated unfairly.
Beautifully stated, John. Thank you. And there you go. I think you got it perfect here. And
the effect of this is, Anthony, that, you know, the reality is that precisely because of the, I think reasonable claim that, you know, certain people didn't know about citizenship taxation, they've not been filing taxes. The reality of this is that because there's a difference between tax and immigration, that interestingly, because they haven't been filing taxes, they're actually able to hold on to U.S. citizenship for life as though they're a national and not a citizen.
Correct.
I mean, you know, like if you really look at this rationally, it's really, really hard. I mean, can anybody even make up an argument that this is not a specific legislative benefit for this group of people?
No, it absolutely isn't.
Right.
I've used it.
I will say, and I'm just putting everything on the table here, John and Anthony. It is a legislative benefit, and that's absolutely fantastic. Where the problem also lies is for some of the populations and the accidental Americans, it's kind of hard. And you guys tell me what you think. Is that in the immediate, they're dealing with the banking problem. They either have to supply a social security number or a certificate of loss of nationality. And if they don't have either one of those, they can have their bank account closed. So they're faced with the choice of going through the process, which can be an arduous one, of getting a social security number, or they have to go and scamper and get the $2,350 together to go and renounce. And they have to do that in the immediate. That's a problem. That is a problem. Now, that's not to say, that's the last point. That's not to say that the other populations don't have a problem with banking, because they do. Because once they're identified as an American, they could just have their bank account closed because that particular bank says, we're not going to deal with any Americans, full stop. So it's an issue.
You know, well, I got to say, this is a great summary. John, one of the links you have here is the relief procedures for certain former Americans. This is for accidental Americans. A fantastic summary on really the government's claim, which is I might have to stop.
Yeah, but it's not just for accidental Americans. It's also for Americans overseas who have never filed the U.S. tax return as well.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things here. I do want to. I want to step. I know we have a lot of people. We're great audience today, guys. Fantastic.
Do we? Okay.
Oh yeah. We're doing great. Good morning. Good morning. I just want to say good morning to a few people. Borchelle, great to see you. David. Great to see you. Good morning to you. We also have Andrew. Oh, you know what I'm going through, Andrew. You see, you know I'm looking at this right here. The 14th Amendment to the United States. Andrew and I have been doing a lot of discussions. Andrew and I are talking a lot now, so we've been having a lot of fun going over legal precision here. And I might get to some of the things that we've talked about. But there's a lot of things going on. Good morning to you. Good morning to you, Gabe. No, John, I haven't talked to John Shoemaker yet. I got to get into that. Oh, I know you're yelling, Andrew. I know you're yelling. Good morning, Sherry. Great to see you there. Let's see here. We got everyone. Let's go. All right, we're gonna stay it. All right, we're gonna go. Good morning, everyone. Let's get going with everything else we're doing here. So I just want to get that. So what I want to talk about next is there's definitely, some very, very significant advantages you have as a dual citizen by birth. And we've gone over this many times, and I use it myself in exit tax planning. And this is sort of what I want to get to. This is really the point that I think might get lost in all of this, that you can just have a normal American living overseas, marries a non-American, living a dream life, kids, a great guy making a bunch of money at his business, now has a problem, and it could be reverse. It could be a U.S. The wife could be American. Now they are
either way, yeah,
because of some banking issue and they're forced with terrorism, absolute terrorism, Mike. And I think this is what we're going to have to discuss next week too, by the way. I think this is going to be next week's, because I want to go over how to beat the government's case at this one here. Let me get my mouse over here. This right here, the New Zealand FBAR case right now, that is utterly disgusting, because I didn't get into it that much. But if you look at the years that the IRS is going for, it's 2004, 2005 to 2020, 2012. That means these people were in the OVDI. Right. That means they tried to come clean. That means the government is going, and I'm like looking at these penalties. It's utterly disgusting what they happen. This is the terror.
It's terror
that Americans are living under. They have a bank account, and if you look at how they're counting, and I haven't looked into it that much, I'll look a little bit more. But I mean, they are asserting penalties well beyond the net worth of these individuals. Yeah. And that is the terror we're all living under. And it could be you. I think one of my greatest frustrations I've had as a tax attorney is I've been doing this since 2006. And I've seen people come in of all parts of the economic spectrum, all parts of the political spectrum. And they're all saying that, and at the same point, they'll vote for the same people that create the same thing, that created the thing that they're underneath. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. You don't see how you're authorizing this government to rule over you and destroy you. And you think you're fine because you don't understand it and you don't know the circumstances of life that will lead you to having a tax emergency where spending tens of thousands of dollars on a tax attorney like me will be a good idea. That is what we're talking about. People aren't paying me money because we live in a free society. People are paying me to defend them because we have an enemy called our government. And that's what it is. And that's where it just baffles me that people will go and say, well, what we need to have is a special carve out for my little situation here. No, what we need to do is end the control of the U.S. government. That's what we need to do. We need to have a government that's limited in what it can do, not can do everything. That's kind of what we need to get to. That's where I am seeing everyone is living in this terror. And now, yes, and this is what I say, if you are an accidental American, you have a pretty good way out. Yeah, it's a pain in the butt, but it's a lot better than what other Americans are. And then you're done. But now you have a problem, too. Now, this is the other problem of it, too, Keith. When someone's renouncing their U.S. citizenship, it's a big deal. And you've been through it. I've been through it.
Well,
you're still American, but you and I have been, we know people who've gone through it, right? It's a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big deal. And it's especially a big deal for people who have that emotional tie to the United States. It's a psychologically big deal. Big deal. They don't want to do it, but they're forced into that type of situation that they have to do it. Otherwise, if they don't do it, they're going to be financially ruined moving forward.
Yeah. Exactly. And that is the terror they live on. I'm on. Now, I wanted to get to the other comment. Now, let me just see.
Keith,
John.
on that
Yeah.
point, you would agree,
Yeah.
you acknowledge that dual citizens from birth are not forced to renounce their citizenship to the extent that other ones are. You would agree with that?
Yeah, I'm just thinking, John, out loud.
You think
Yes.
that
Wait. But I want to answer your question as best I can. I agree with it, yes and no, because I still go back to the situation that you're a dual citizen from birth. The only time that you would be forced to renounce your U.S. citizenship is because of that banking issue that's a problem. Because if you're a dual citizen from birth and you don't have that Social Security number, then you got a problem with your bank. And so you're forced to renounce. Do you see what I mean? So
well,
there
there's
are
no
instances that they are forced.
no,
Go-
I don't see what you mean. Okay, and
Okay.
here's why.
Why?
Because
Okay.
the same thing applies to any American citizen. Okay, and it's the fact of American citizenship and the banking issue that causes the problem.
Right.
There are people all over the world who are not dual citizens from birth who have the banking problem. I agree, at least I think I agree, that if we're talking about dual citizens from birth, which I think we are, who, have not lived in the United States and have no financial footprint in the United States, I would say that depending on the part of the world they're in, specifically in Europe, where your place of birth is on your ID, I think that would be a bigger problem in Europe. Okay, so yes, I agree that's a problem, and I think it's a significant problem, and it's one more example why this is kind of an equal opportunity destroyer. But my point is, okay, the dual citizenship thing allows dual citizens from birth to avoid the covered expatriate status.
Right.
And there are many people who feel that they must renounce before they hit the 2 million thing just to preserve their ability to leave their assets and legacy to their children. And
That's
this is
true.
not a problem that this group
That's
of
true.
people have.
Yeah, they
So
don't have to
no,
worry about that aspect. That's
with
true.
respect, I do not agree with. I agree with your description of the facts, but I do not agree with your conclusion on it because that applies to any American citizen, whether they're
Okay.
dual or not. They all have the banking issue.
Right. Okay. All right. I hear you. I hear you. And you do raise a good point in regards to that $2 million threshold, where
It's
dual
huge.
nationals,
It's
with
huge.
dual nationals from birth, they don't have to worry about that part. They don't at
All they
all.
have to do at any point is to be, tax compliant for 5 years. Now, I'm not saying that's a small thing. I'm not saying it's a trivial thing. And it can be a very big issue for certain people. But the simple fact of the matter here, and this is just a fact, is that
Right.
because the dual citizenship birth exemption absolutely creates opportunities to escape
Yeah.
covered expatriate status
Right.
that no other person has.
That's true. And for that individual or that accidental American sometimes it's best for them to be U.S. tax compliant when they renounce, they can have $10 million in the bank and they don't have to pay an exit tax, which is
That's
wonderful.
why that is the argument for, it's one of the arguments, but I think that it's the strongest argument for tax compliance for, I think we should talk about who accidental
Right.
Americans are.
But I will say this, which is a great thing to have, as I like to call it, a clean renunciation. But I will also say the reality on the ground is that many of them just renounce and don't enter the U.S. tax system. And that's been going on for 15 years and they move forward with their lives. So there's a lot of latitude there, which is not bad.
Well, look, the relief procedures specifically contemplate the reality of that, and that's half the reason for the relief procedures. But look, let's be clear here, okay? So you're anybody on the planet. There are very few people in this world who don't care about their kids. There are very few people in this world who will not go the extra mile, okay, to create opportunities for their kids.
Right.
Now, if you are a dual citizen from birth, okay, you have U.S. citizen children, all right, maybe they're dual citizens, maybe they're not, I don't know, depending on the situation. I mean, this can get really, really quirky.
Yeah.
But most people want to be able to preserve their ability, okay, to leave their assets, their estate to family members down the road. If you're a covered expatriate, you're going to have a lot of difficulty doing that, or at least more difficulty.
We covered this before. Yeah, when we covered this topic on covered expat gifts. So it's and
Right.
you know, we have several podcasts on this to go over the difficulty
Right.
of when there's an American and there's
the bottom line on this is very simple. Okay. And leaving aside the context that we're talking about, this is something I've been saying for eons. All right. That I think you can see that dual citizenship from birth is an incredibly valuable thing, It opens up opportunities that other people don't have. And moving outside the context of this particular discussion, as I've been saying for a long time, people should really, this has reached the stage where people should really think about their citizenship of their future children. Okay? Where should they be born? Who should they be born to, etc.? Because the way things are going, dual citizenship from birth is, in fact, your ticket to mobility, to being able to leave the United States down the road if you really want to. I mean,
Yes.
This is incredibly, incredibly valuable stuff.
Yeah, and I would say this is that if you are looking, I would say there's probably a gold mine of sorts. If someone created a dating site of dual citizens by birth. Hey, look, you know what? I mean, really think about it. If you're a wealthy American doing great, but hey, look, it's getting a little too much here. You go to this matchmaker site, they'll find you a dual, citizen by birth. You marry that person, you gift them all, tax free. Hey, it's your spousal gift. No, nothing to worry about. You renounce with nothing. They renounce. And you avoided everything. And that's really, I think, probably the greatest return on investment, somebody can make is marrying a dual citizen by birth.
Anthony,
Really.
maybe that will be my next venture is a dating site, and I could be the dual citizen Yenta.
Right. Here you go, right? I mean,
but there's another dimension to this. There's another dimension to this. Look, let's be realistic here. At least I believe, and you can confirm or not confirm, I think that U.S. citizenship does have value in this world. Okay? People are not renouncing.
Correct. Right.
They are renouncing because the cost to keep it are too high. Right? Or impossible in some cases. Like look at the couple from New Zealand, as one of many examples. All right?
Right.
But, okay, one thing, sure, you can marry a foreigner. Absolutely. That's the easy way. But another thing is this, that the fact that U.S. citizenship has value, and we're talking about, dating services and this, and this sort of forward planning, there's all kinds of people, all right, who are aware of, and as long as this is a legitimate marriage, et cetera, that, if you're married to a U.S. citizen, you can get a green card, et cetera, right?
Right.
So, I mean, look, that's an interesting trade-off. We want a life together, be married. What I bring to the table is my U.S. citizenship. It gets you the green card in advance. What you bring is citizenship in country X. That means our children will be dual citizens, right?
Well, it depends, and that's why I got to correct David in the comment. Marry a foreigner and have dual citizen kids. Another win for the passport bros. Yes, but if you take somebody, well, wait a minute. But if you take somebody like an accidental American, let's say, and they marry, they're French as well. They marry a French woman and have kids. Those kids do not have dual citizenship because the accidental American does not meet the criteria for transmittal of citizenship. So keep that in mind. Not all kids.
And David, you're much better off marrying a dual citizen than having, a foreigner than having dual citizen kids, because you're going to be limited on how much you can give to your kids. Where if it's your spouse, unlimited. Hey, there you go. That's really what we want to get to. Now, I do want to turn the conversation a little bit because we have the great dear professor of stuffology here. And this is kind of where we might want to go, because I am a student of John Richardson. The great John Richardson is someone who blew me away many years ago with his legal precision. John said something to me that blew my mind years ago. He said, I think it was you, John, who said, the tax code doesn't define individual. I think that was you, John, who told me that.
Possibly.
And so when we go into this, and so we, this is where, and John, you sort of trained me And now Andrew is trading me more. And so when I'm looking at a legal status, I can't unthink. I can't unthink what I'm seeing. And that some of the things, it's like, well, where are we? And what Andrew and I have been talking about the past week is statuses. What's our status? And we actually had a grok conversation where we kind of blew it apart here. And I started this here. This is a whole conversation John and I were tag teaming grok on. Just basically, this is what I started. I think Andrew started this, or I started. We were going back and forth. And sort of the problem that we have is when we look at some of these things, it's like, look, the Constitution says we the people. It doesn't say we the taxpayer, right? So here it is. So here's, and I think I started this one off, and Andy, I'm not sure if you did, but how many times does the U.S. tax code reference the word taxpayer, right? And so we got the answer about exactly 3,117 times. Okay, so that's the count, right? Okay, thanks for the count. Hey, the IRC is 2.6 million words. Taxpayer is one of the most common things, and it compares, that so many times. I'm like, great. What's the definition of taxpayer in the code? Oh, well, Title 26, and it's 2.6 million words. There's no shortage of words, folks. And it's 2.6 million of words. There's no standalone universal definition of taxpayer. There's no definition of it. There's no definition. Now, we have some implications. They're related terms. Taxpayer means any person subject to the internal revenue tax. That's the closest thing. So a taxpayer is someone subject to the tax. That's basically what it's saying. It's a circular definition. A taxpayer is someone who's subject to this tax. If you're subject to this, but they're not even saying taxpayer is someone who's subject to the tax. And then there's even, and then they have sort of implies different definitions. But the only time we find a definition is in the regulation. A taxpayer is subject to any provision of the Internal Revenue Code, whether or not such person has filed a return. That's who a taxpayer is. But we have a problem there. That's a regulation.
Taxpayers what? Any what?
They're saying a taxpayer is any person subject to any provision of the Internal Revenue Code, whether or not such person has filed a return.
Right.
Now we get into this. Now we get into a whole statutory definition of, well, what's a person? Is a person a people, or is a person something else? If a person is a people, then how can a people own a person? Because in the Fourth Amendment, it says all people have a right to have their persons free from illegal conduct and undue government interference. So as we go with there, now this is the thing as we get to a taxpayer is any individual or entity with a legal duty to pay a tax under the Internal Revenue Code. Okay, so this is kind of what we have.
Read it again.
What's that?
Read what you just said again. What a taxpayer is
any individual or entity with a legal duty to pay a tax under the Internal Revenue Code. Now,
individuals defined by the Treasury regs, right?
Well, that's a regulation, right? Loper-Bright came out. That's a major policy decision. I don't know about that one.
Well, as it stands right now, though, it is there. I mean, it does.
Sure, absolutely. Oh, yeah, no question about it. But the ballot, as we're moving to this, it's like we're taxpayers, any individual. So again, that's a court. It's not the statute itself doesn't do it. Okay. A taxpayer. Now, a taxpayer is any person subject to Internal Revenue Code. Well, what's a person? A person is an individual, which the code doesn't define what an individual is. Doesn't define. Corporation, which is fine. Trust, estates, partnerships, tax-exempt orgs, even non-filers.
It doesn't define corporation. It doesn't define trust. I
do believe there's other. I didn't want to focus on that one because I do believe there is an authority for a taxation on corporates because they're not fundamental things. They're creatures of the state. So I haven't gone into that, but it's really the taxpayer part of individuals. So what we get to is that the internal And then what is and this is the other thing too. So the term taxpayers means any person subject to any internal revenue tax. So the question I had for is, well, what's an internal revenue tax? And the answer is, Title 26 doesn't contain a single explicit definition of the phrase any internal revenue tax, or 7701 or elsewhere. However, its meaning is derived, again, from its structured judicial interpretation, but not the regulations. That is not the words. That is, we're going outside the words to create the definition of what the internal revenue tax is. So we have a statutory definition is that maybe, that 26 USCs of the Internal Revenue Code is an internal revenue tax, but they haven't made that definition. It's like, why didn't you make that a definition? Again, you had 2.6 million words, but you couldn't find any word in there to actually define this with any precision. And so here's the regulation. The regulation, again, defines it. Treasury Regulation 301-7701-1A1. Now, this defines it, right? But again, that's a regulation. Loper Bright, why are we making major policy decisions with regulation? Nope, that needs to be in the law. So we have a problem with that one. Now, as we go down here, here's all the various internal revenue taxes. And here's some not in revenue taxes. Whoa. Well, that's weird. Wait a second. Internal revenue taxes? Well, custom and duty are in Title 19, not 26. Whoa. So my argument isn't all that crazy. You see, it's like they're claiming that internal revenue taxes are nothing but Title 26, but we know it's outside. So this idea that they haven't defined what an internal revenue tax is actually important, that we have to look to other things. So any internal revenue tax means that's what they're trying to do, but that's not supported by the actual government. Now we get down here. So there is no express definition of internal revenue tax, so we have to imply its meaning in context. Now, this is the question I asked. Does the question have to be provided precise or vagueness is allowed? And here we go. The statutes are not precise, or they're not allowed to be precise, and that there's a void for vagueness doctrine. When statutes don't define what's allowed and what is there, and then you're filling in nearly everything with regulation, we got a problem. That you have a very vague statute that cannot withstand constitutional scrutiny. So we need a reasonable certainty. Tax statutes need only be reasonably certain, not mathematically precise, which is an interesting thing. That's kind of a bold statement right there. You mean not I mean, we have ones that aren't even possible. And that's what I would say. So we're like, this is kind of an offensive. This is this offensive statement because this is somebody who doesn't understand what it is. We certainly have. Now this was in 1985, so they didn't have PFIX yet. But there's certainly situations where you can't really figure out what someone owes. You're guessing, and that's true with cryptocurrency. You actually cannot figure out what someone's tax bill is because you can't actually do it. So there's no reasonable. Go ahead. Oh, Keith, you have to stop out.
Well, not yet, but I'm sorry. As I was listening to you, Anthony, I was just reading Software, just put up a comment, which I thought was interesting. He or she wrote, LaHood amnesty, meaning the LaHood bill, amnesty for those who left before 2010 FATCA mostly helps accidentals keep U.S. citizenship that they probably don't need. Without certification, everyone outside U.S. before LaHood gets this deal. What do you guys think about that, with the LaHood bill? I know, John,
Yeah.
What do you think, John? I mean, I know you had said that there's only a certain subpopulation that's really helped.
What I think is this, okay, and let me preface this by saying that, U.S. citizenship taxation is a gigantic problem for every individual on the planet, for the world, etc. And at the end of the day, I think that, my view of this is that there's only one solution, and that's severing citizenship from tax residency forever like the rest of the world. Problem is this, that there has been no initiative, okay, other than perhaps suggestions by Republicans overseas to actually do that, right? Everything else is, by definition, trying to provide a carve out, whether it's an income inclusion or people subject to it, etc. Now, to be sure, okay, what the LaHood bill does is it creates sort of categories of beneficiaries, okay? Most of what I think is that whatever gets the job done is probably okay. But once again, the problem is the categories of exclusion, so to speak, really are presuming or unwilling to challenge, the problem of citizenship taxation anyway. So, you always have these winners and losers. My personal view is that the better way to do this, even under the LaHood bill, and by the way, the people on the Hood did a lot of work, and I think it's generally a good bill. But it is clear that having various groups has, created friction, online, etc. I do not agree that this is an amnesty, which is discussed. I don't think it's an amnesty necessarily, but there is no doubt that it provides better benefits to certain kinds of people with certain characteristics. And I would prefer a solution that just basically, if you're not a resident of the United States, you're out. That's my view of it.
Yeah.
Did I answer? I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's good. And I am going to have to go. So if I may just say again, just to reiterate in the beginning, is that we are all in the same boat. Nobody has it worse than another. We can always take a look at the worst situations in all the different subpopulations. But at the end of the day, we need to collectively come together, not separate us on who's worse than the other. So please, we should not be divisive. We got to come together. We all have the same damage and the same challenges.
Keith, I think you're absolutely right, okay, on that point. But the problem is this, that until, if ever, the commitment is to actually severing citizenship from tax residency and not, just, creating infinite carve-outs. I think we're going to have this problem, okay? Let's not deny that in the Internal Revenue Code, certain groups do have benefits that, they have a get out of jail free card that others don't. And what's astounding about this, is that an American who would trace their lineage back to the daughters of the American Revolution, right? This sort of thing, they have no way out, right? But imagine two people born in a hospital bed, born in a hospital room, say in Chicago. One of them is born to U.S. citizen-only parents. The other is born to, say, a Canadian father who's in the United States his whole life. That baby has special privileges. Okay?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. What do you think of that?
Different classes of U.S. citizenship.
There you go.
Well, what it is, it's compounding, right? It's compounding the life determinants based on circumstances of birth, right? That's all it is. It's incredibly arbitrary. Well, you're two billionaires, okay? Both want to leave the U.S. Yeah. One, U.S. citizen only, big part of their assets confiscated. The other, oh, my God, I found out my father was a Canadian. I don't have to pay that. Bye-bye.
Right. I can maintain my capital.
Yes. Now, these are examples of citizenship non-taxation. And we all agree that citizenship taxation is bad. Citizenship non-taxation is every bit as bad, because any definition of tax residency based on citizenship should be a no-go. And I think that, that sort of shows it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, gentlemen, I'm going to have to go.
We'll see you next week.
Yeah. Look, gentlemen, always a pleasure. I'll see you next week.
Thank you so much.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
And I would agree with it, right? That it tends to force out the people who really do feel they're Americans, who have family in America, but again allows people who have really no connection with America whatsoever to keep their citizenship, or at least it's easier for them to do that, keep it in the drawer. And make no mistake about it. I mean, if we're looking at France, the U.S. French tax treaty has, benefits based on American citizenship, right? The non-taxation of certain U.S. investment.
Yeah, right, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
You can't make it up.
And I would just software. I appreciate your comment, and I really want to answer you. And I wasn't a huge fan of the LaHood bill when it came out because it did look like a bait and switch, and things there that weren't really what I want to do, and it seemed to ratify more the absurdity of citizenship-based taxation. And since that time, I've only been strong. My objection to it only has grown, and the reason why is that you're asking the very people responsible for your daily abuse. These are the people who are responsible for the status quo. All of them. You're asking them, oh, please do me a little favor. Please, will you give me a little favor here? Because look, and this is, and again, this flipped me out here because I agree with your RM right here, because this is what freaked me out when I'm talking about this. We're like, it needs to be revenue neutral. Oh, can you tell me where that is in this Constitution? This doesn't apply if it's not your rights depend on what's revenue neutral. Just find me that part in the Constitution that says, oh, yeah. Find me that legal maxim that would say your rights are dependent on what's revenue neutral. It's like, no, actually, all the taxing authority granted to this government was given to it by the people. The government has no power to tax on its own, zero. It only derives that right from the people. And really what I would say is I am now totally convinced. I've been totally convinced there's never going to be any statutory solution to this. You can't. You're asking an addict not to do the thing they do while they have the thing they're doing. Like, hey, stop taking heroin, and you give them heroin, and you give them. Like, what are you doing? No, there's no hope whatsoever. This government is clearly controlled. It's clearly the enemy of the people. Really, where I think our best bets are in the court system. Our court system, and really the Supreme Court, has been doing amazing things. And looking at fundamental statuses and answering fundamental questions that we need to get to the bottom of this, and really that this isn't at all anyway legal. The government has slowly taken away more things. We just need to take notice of the things that we see. Why did the Revenue Act of 1862 have worldwide tax jurisdiction? Why? And the answer was because Lincoln wanted to punish guys who didn't want to fight in his war. That's what it gets down to. What was the law that was passed in 1865? Oh, it was a punishment. They punished more laws. If you left the country, didn't fight, you do your duty, they punished you. And that is the whole point. Since the Civil War, the federal government has claimed ownership of your body, of you, complete ownership. And that's what we live under today. We're distracted from that. But that is the root cause of this. We lost the Civil War. Sorry, folks, that's where we go to. And we do have so how can we get the case to the Supreme Court? Ooh, that's a good one. And I actually did have this. I did kind of go through this in the Grok conversation. I actually created a whole. We were talking about this. The way. Let me go down here because I actually have I had the AI kind of create something for this, because here's the way. There actually is a very. I think I have a very good framework for this. Again. Okay, so here's what we get to. Section 1 doesn't say it taxes the people. It says every individual. Okay? It never mentions that the individual are people. Totally different. And there's no statute to say there is. And so the point is this, that what we are left with, hang on a second. Here we go. Here's what we want to get to. The statutory vagueness challenge to Title 26. I think this is here. Individuals, undefined. Taxpayer, any individual subject to any internal revenue tax. That an internal revenue tax is undefined. It's a circular definition. Person includes individual. It's circular. There's actually nothing there. Post Loper versus Bright. Is an individual a member of the people? We don't know. We can't use regulations to determine. Is internal revenue tax limited to Title 26 when there's other taxes out there? Right? How is delegated taxing power, Article 1.8, reached an undefined term individual? Hey, you get the power from the people to tax the people, but you're taxing something called individuals. Who's that? Why? Why didn't you say the people? What's with that? The people are the source of all taxing power. This is what you need to say. It's right there. It's right there. We, the people, do ordain and establish. Article 1, the Congress shall have the power to lay and collect taxes. It does not come from the federal government. It comes from the people. Therefore, the federal government can only impact the people. And now, again, does not define individual. Taxpayers undefined. Internal revenue tax can include non-Title 26 laws or none. We don't know. Layered vagueness on top of vagueness. Post Loper versus Wright, courts cannot rely on IRS regulations. We have a colorable claim for non-applicability because it's undefined. And that's where we are. I mean, that's actually where we are. Now, John, I know we're coming up on time. What do you think so far? What do you think? I'm just a student of, I'm just following your advice by looking at the fundamental statuses. That is where I am thinking that that our statutory interference with our fundamental rights. It's so bizarre and expansive that it actually never ends up defining things. It actually never defines the thing it needs to define.
Yeah, I mean, I think that can be a problem. I mean, we see this. I mean, just all over the place. But to your point that, I mean, basically, as a general principle, isn't the purpose of statutes to whittle down rights? I mean, isn't that the whole purpose of statutes?
Well, that's what they do, but they're not. They're supposed. You know, every statute written is supposed to be controlled by common law fundamental rights. That's what the constitutions all do. That part is forgotten.
Well, that's the view. You know, I mean, it's not. I don't. You know what? I mean, I think that's worth a really, really deep dive. I don't know. I mean, you look at something like, you know, one of the earlier constitutions in the United States that specifically incorporate the common law, right? And you know, I don't know. I mean, what does that mean? I mean, you know, what's the part of the problem is the common law by definition is an evolving body of law. I mean, even if you're incorporating the common law, you're incorporating as it stands now, as it stood, you know, frozen in time at the time of these state constitutions were put together. I don't really know. But I do not believe that there's any assumption. I think where we would agree is that there is clearly no presumption of individual liberties left in the common law world. That is clear. Whether you're looking at the United States, whether you're looking at Canada, you know, whether you're looking, you know, at the UK, I mean, that's clear. I also think a second thing that's clear is that the existence of a written constitution in these countries has no real bearing on that. I mean, because, you know, the United States, of course, has a written constitution that's, you know, basically created a lot of work for lawyers. Canada, at least since '82, has had something that, you know, is sort of similar, but I don't see any particular difference in the right, you know, and the rights of individuals, you know, among these particular countries. Although I think that probably the U.S. would have a lower standard of individual rights and freedoms. So I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I think the first question is, you know, do people even want to have rights and freedoms, right? I think that they're so used to, you know, living in a world where people are presumptively, every person on the planet, you know, 5 felonies a day or whatever, you know, are guilty of something. So their energy goes into, you know, avoiding punishment, you know, for God knows what. I don't know that people would know what to do with liberties if they, you know, fell into their lap. You know,
I think there's a lot of that. And I just want to, software has a great question here. I want to just get this. I want to just get the Fourth Amendment up here. to answer this question. Could a foreign bank sue the U.S. for violating the Fourth Amendment? I really don't understand how Americans abroad don't have standing to sue for FATCA. I know, well, because, well, I mean, we're looking for justice from this government. I mean, that's the problem right there, right? When they're targeted jurisdiction. Well, this is what I would say.
They do have standing. You know, it's just that, you know, you have to have standing, and as a general principle, they have standing. You know, but the problem is that you need to, you know, reassert standing, you know, in the context of every single lawsuit out there, right? And if you're talking about the Republicans overseas lawsuit, the FATCA legal action lawsuit, I think the problem was not that, it wasn't that a U.S. citizen doesn't have standing. I think, if I recall, and I may be wrong, was that they weren't able to articulate or explain a harm that the U.S. government caused them because of FATCA. Because what some of those cases,
there was the court inventing no harm. The court went beyond itself. I mean, they always do that. You don't have any harm. Oh, give me a break. But I would say,
I'm just saying, okay, that it's not the case that look, individuals have standing as a general principle, but they have to assert and explain the standing in the context of the individual case. That's all, and that would include, you know.
Yeah, and the software, I think the answer to your question is, it says the right of the people to be secure in their persons. Well, that a foreign bank is not a people. I think that's going to be your first problem. It's not a people. So that is, you know, now of course, the issue is that, you know, the courts have restricted the rights of due process so much to the people that it gets confusing. Because I mean, you know, while this Fourth Amendment's there and written, and you know, we're trying to act like it actually means something, and maybe sometimes it does. For the most part, but you know, the Supreme Court ignores it because, hey, taxes, right? You know, they believe that, hey, look, if taxes are involved, or anything the government wants, the Bill of Rights is exception. And for the practical reasons of government, the Bill of Rights doesn't apply. That's really what should have been put in the Constitution. And I think that's, you know, we are. I got a lot of stuff to get to. I got to get to. We are. We gotta. Yeah, I think. Thanks very much. We're calling everyone but people, right? The status is anyway. Well, we're out of time here. So next week, John, I think this would be the one. I really want to talk about the New Zealand FBAR case. That is utterly infuriating me. And I want to give them, whoever is representing them a game plan to defeat the FBAR penalties using Loper-Bright and many of the arguments that we have, that there is no FBAR, there is no actual FBAR statute. And, you know, you can see that in the complaint the government has. They can't go to the statute. They have to go to the regulations. They have to go to the regulations say this. And so you're ruining someone's life over a regulation in typical government fashion. And, you know, it's really fascinating. We have a new administration, but the same policy of deliberately, intentionally terrorizing Americans overseas with bank accounts. It's the same thing that, and again, you see how no matter who we vote for, we get the same thing: a government way out of control and clearly against the American people. So with that, yeah, we'll finish with this. I want to thank John for joining us today. And if you are thinking of renouncing your citizenship, I can't think of anyone better than John Richardson. You can reach out to him. And he's also on Twitter. You can see his handle there at expatriationlaw.com. Reach out to him. Tell him what's going on. Complicated expatriations are his specialty. Citizenship solutions at protonmail.com. And likewise, myself, I am Anthony Parent. I run a firm, IRSMedic, Parent. We go and we help people around the world deal with getting into compliance and finding solutions to their worldwide tax and estate planning issues. If you have something going on, streamlined disclosure, or you're thinking about doing it, reach out to me. We actually do just tax prep too. If you have international tax prep, I think we do some of the best around. Michael Malott, our CPA, is running our tax division, and it's fantastic. So if you want to reach out there, go to IRSMedic.com. You can find me there. Also, I have my email right there. So that's actually my email. It goes right to my email. So anything comes up, let me know. Send it to me. With that, we're going to see you next week. John Richardson, Keith Redmondand. Thanks so much for watching. Okay. Hang on. Oh, the TikTok. I do have a TikTok account going. Yeah. All right. I maybe need to make that content. I am on TikTok, by the way. But that would be a good idea. I think a whole stream of content to go over a lot of these things, and just like, and I think a lot, this is what I would say, Avery. Kind of like, what Andrew's really got me going on is just looking at these very fundamental concepts. And I have to put some content up, but like, look how undefined this is. And it's 2.6 million words. So much stuff is undefined. And really, and this is kind of my point, that as I get more and more outraged by this government, I see the solutions more and more clear. It's not a revolution. We just need to impose a law. The law is the solution. What is the law? That's the answer. All right, the next time. Oh, thank you so much, Avery. Rob, all right, I'll be talking to you. All right, awesome. Fantastic. All right, I'll see you guys next week. Thanks so much to John and Keith, and thanks so much for the great audience today. Really appreciate it.